Well, good morning. My name is Cody Wild, and I have the privilege of serving as National Director of Operations for the Prison Fellowship Academy, which is a program of prison fellowship ministries. But before I tell you a little bit more about the Academy itself, I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine by the name of Daryl Brooks. When he was 23 years old, Daryl received a 15-year prison sentence in the state of Texas. Upon entering into the system, Daryl quickly realized that much of the dysfunction and brokenness that he had encountered on the streets were actually only magnified in prison. That prison for Daryl became a place where the streets existed in a pressure cooker. And by his own admission, Daryl participated in it all and did so with enthusiasm. See, I've heard very similar stories from individuals all across the country. In the United States, prison is largely a place where the, quote, problem people of society go to be forgotten by the rest of us. To be forgotten, to be forsaken, to be blotted out from the consciousness of another. It ends up chilling the souls of both those inside and those of us who, through our own ambivalence, perpetuate the problem. Presently, 2.2 million people live behind bars in the United States. That this is truly an epidemic of the mass forgotten. At Prison Fellowship, our mission emerges out of a very simple admonition found in the book of Hebrews in the New Testament of the Bible. In the 13th chapter, the author says, "Remember those in prison as though you yourself were in prison with them." Remember those in prison. Now, to remember in this sense is not simply to recall or to think about, but rather to hold the presence of another before you. To make them what is most real to all of your senses, to encounter the other, not as an object that could ever be discarded, but as a vow, as a sacred presence to be embraced. When Daryl entered the Prison Fellowship Academy, he immediately described it as a place of community, a place of love, a place where he was noticed, cared about, a place where Daryl was remembered. In the Prison Fellowship Academy, we strive to build communities and create opportunities for men and women in prison to practice, develop, and transform themselves and others into good citizens. And we intentionally facilitate and direct this type of transformation through three primary things: curriculum, coaching, and community. Number one, curriculum. With content covering topics ranging from criminogenic risk factors to financial literacy and conflict resolution, we address what brought a person to prison and conversely teach the skills and practices to allow every participant to become a flourishing and contributing member of society in prison or out. And all of our content is rooted in biblical principles, though our academies are open to men and women of all faiths or no religious preference. That's never a criteria to get in or to graduate. Number two, coaching. Through monthly one-on-one sessions and weekly small group conversations, staff and volunteers help inspire and mentor participants in their change journeys, modeling not what perfect looks like, but rather what healthy looks like. And as a consequence, bridging the community on the inside with the community on the outside. Which brings me to my third and final point, community. All of our academies are cohort-based, where in many places participants live together in designated housing units within the prison walls, actively contributing to one another's change journeys 24/7. Our academies typically run 12 months in length and is completely voluntary for every single participant. As Daryl began to go through the academy, and noticed that others genuinely showed an interest in him. Others, meaning other participants, staff, and volunteers. As he noticed that others genuinely cared about him, he then noticed that he himself was developing a new regard for others. It was as though the love that had been consistently shown to Daryl was now filling him up in ways that now compelled him to offer it to others. See, men and women across the country are experiencing a very similar transformational journey, a change in the way in which they relate to others. And as a consequence, communities in prison are changing. A prison culture marked by forgottenness and decay is changing. And it's changing from Virginia to California, from Minnesota to Texas. Today, we have 90 academies in 28 states with a goal of changing a national culture around prison by changing prison culture from the inside and then moving out. And all of this is rooted in a countercultural economy that we as an organization find in the gospel of Jesus. And this is perhaps best articulated by the Apostle Paul's first letter to the church at Corinth when he says, "The Lord uses the weak things of the world to confound the strong, to take the world and turn it on its head." See, we believe that leaders that emerge from the ashes, that come from the forgotten places, help remind us all of our own highest aspirations. Today, Daryl Brooks is now the director of the academy he graduated from. And recently, Daryl received an invitation to the White House to participate in a larger conversation with the President of the United States around second chances for people coming out of prison just like he did. As I close, I'm reminded of a line by the writer Elie Wiesel, who once said that the opposite of love is not hate, but indifference. And when you think about the spiritual and moral poverty that takes root in the human heart, when you actively hate another person, how much more so when we live in a society that allows itself to forget its own neighbors? Daryl Brooks was remembered while in prison. And I believe with all of my heart that God himself resides in the broken and forgotten places. And when we as a broader society choose to get close to those places, when we behold the sacredness held in forsakenness, we begin to remember, to recover something locked away in here, in a world turned on its head. I believe that the day is coming when we will all look to those in prison, and we ourselves might perhaps find freedom. So stand with us, and let's remember together. Thank you.
Thank you.